For hockey players and coaches featured in this video series, winning is performing at their highest level. Recognizing that their talents and abilities are gifts from God, they are highly motivated to train and compete to express their thankfulness to Him for all that He has given them. They want to count for God, and they compete to fulfill His purpose for their lives. In this pursuit, they are unstoppable. Their lives reveal an inner peace through faith in Jesus Christ, who gives them strength both on and off the ice.
So, Brad, great to hear your story. Start us off just from a hockey perspective. Just give us a quick run. Sort of how did you get into this game, and how did you get to coaching where you're at right now?
Yeah, well, that could be a pretty long-winded story, but I'll keep it as brief as possible. I grew up in Western Canada. Started in Armstrong, British Columbia, actually, and moved to Vernon when I was 12. But like most Canadian kids, hockey was kind of the thing to do and what I loved to do, and I had a real strong passion for hockey right from the get-go. So I can remember back to shoot tennis balls against the garage door, playing in the empty basement, anything to just get out there. So, played minor hockey in Armstrong for a couple of years, and then ended up in Vernon, played Pee-wees, Bantams, and then left home at 15 years old to play Junior B, and that was in Nelson, British Columbia. Played 1 year there, and I was drafted by the Swift Current Broncos as a 16-year-old. I was fortunate enough to make that team and played there for 4 years, and then got drafted and started my career in the Avalanche organization. So getting into all of it, I played about 13 years pro, about almost half and half, a little over 300 games in the NHL, a little over 400 in the American League, and lots of ups and downs, lots of injuries, that type of thing. But and then I knew the one thing about being injured a lot is I knew I had to. Let's put it this way: there's a few moments where I didn't know if my career was going to continue. I was a pretty marginal player at best, and so I always had to think kind of what's going to be next for me. And coaching was something I just was drawn to right away. That the opportunity to teach and be a part of the game and still be close to the game and have an impact on it, hopefully, I always intrigued me. So it's funny, when I played in Swift Current my last year, I was leaving. When I played with Todd McClellan, and his assistant coach was, we were talking. He goes, he goes, I see you having a 10-year career, then getting right into coaching. And I was like, well, I don't know about that, but sure enough, I was fortunate to play 13 and then started coaching, and then so I've been in coaching now this is my 10th year. Just well, it's not wrapped up. We're kind of in that. Like everybody, we're just in a waiting pattern here to see what's going to happen. But yeah, it's been 4 years in the American League, as 2 years as head, 2 years as assistant, and now been assistant coach in the NHL for the last 6.
Very good. That's exciting. So Brad, a little bit like you and I have a very similar story, and a little bit like me, your career, your life was intersected. You had a little bit of a change spiritually. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, it was, I grew up in a home where, faith wasn't really talked about much at all. And I love my parents. My mom and dad are fantastic people, and they did a tremendous job just raising me and providing for me, and was always filled with love. But as far as I guess you could call it religion, there wasn't. We didn't go to church. We didn't really talk about God. It wasn't part of our repertoire, and so yeah, I just kind of grew up and didn't really know much about it. And as I got later into my career, I would say about mid-20s or so. There was a moment where I remember sitting in Denver, Colorado, in my apartment, and I'd played a couple of years in the NHL now, and you kind of feel like you've made it a little bit and had a little bit of status, had a little bit of money, but the one thing that was just missing was peace. I never had that inner peace that I was, I guess, was hoping to have or thought that this career would bring. And so, so then I think the wheel started to turn in my head, and felt like there had to be more. And it wasn't, I wasn't atheist. I wasn't someone who didn't believe in God. I just wasn't sure. I didn't really know. I felt if there was a God, and he'll recognize I'm good enough and I give to enough charities. I'm a nice enough guy, and we'll figure it out at the end if we need to. So, but not having that peace just kind of spurred it. And I was always the guy that would be arguing the Bible, or almost making fun of those guys that were Christians or were just religious. And I was uncomfortable because I didn't know any better, and how ignorant was I arguing something? I never opened the Bible. I didn't know anything about it, other than I had to defend not being a man of faith. So I always was uncomfortable with that. But as this process started, and this kind of my journey started mid-20s, and without getting too long-winded, I was fortunate enough to meet my wife in Atlanta, and the timing was, God's timing is always seems to be perfect, right? And she was a Christian at the time, and I wasn't, but we hit it off, and I was looking for somebody special in my life at that point. This is now as late 20s and 30, and she met all that criteria, and she was awesome with me. She was so patient with me in my journey, and I had this tug of war. I really wanted to find out more, but I'd be asking her questions, I'd get the answers, and then I'd go away for a month or 6 weeks or 2 months, and when and she tells me now it was killing her. She could feel I was getting closer, but really looking back now, it's just my ego and pride, and thinking I had to let go of everything and give up everything, and really I was gaining the whole world once I did it. But and during that time, I also, my last year pro, Joe DePenta was a guy that that I really had a ton of respect for, and I just finished up in Anaheim. I missed the whole season due to injury. I had hip surgery and double sports hernia surgery all in 1 year. So I didn't even play that whole year. I just worked out and trained. I was going to try and kickstart my career for one, or give it one last go, actually. And so I played in the minors in Buffalo system. And Joe was there, DePenta. He had won a Stanley Cup in Anaheim, and kind of a tough guy. But I remember standing up one day and saying, HMI is going to be coming to every Thursday now. If guys want to start joining, it's completely voluntary. So I always thought, what, this could be a good step for me. So I ended up going to the first. I remember going to the first one, and super uncomfortable. I just didn't. They're talking about the Bible. I have no clue what they're talking about, and I didn't go back for the next couple of weeks. But then I went back again, and then back again, and they were great. I had all the typical questions, and they had great answers, and God just really started to work on me. Joe was a part of that. My wife was fantastic, and just patient with me, and everybody always asked, what was the moment? Did you hit rock bottom? And I certainly was a guy who never hit rock bottom. I'd had cancer twice by that point, and that wasn't it. It was just, I remember waking up one day, and I remember looking at my wife and going, I'm ready. And she's like, ready for what? I said, I'm ready to give myself to Christ. And May 22nd, 2011, I did it in front of her. Her dad actually was a pastor, and he baptized me in a pool in Georgia in front of her family. So from that day forward, it's been incredible. I can't really describe it anything other than, my life took a 180, and I owe it all to Christ.
It's beautiful. Thank you for that, Brad. What one thing, as we sort of finish off here, what one thing would you sort of want to tell players, coaches, friends, family? Like, what one thing allowed you to get started on that journey?
Oh, it's so hard to narrow that to one for me. I think, the best thing I would say is just go for it. You have nothing to lose and you have everything to gain. And I think we're always so worried about having all the answers. And again, I can only speak from my experiences. I wanted it to be kind of black and white. I wanted the hard answers, the facts. And, I always looked at being a man of faith as, if it doesn't all line up to what exactly it's supposed to look like, then, how can you do it? There is a moment where, we all have to take that leap of faith. But I don't ever believe it's blind faith, at all. I think if you're looking for facts, they're out there, and go educate yourself. I think to me, this is one of the biggest decisions you'll ever make in your life. And so why not be sure? If I'm not going to get you to God, and you can't get it, it's so personal. And that's the beauty of the journey. It's between you and him, and your story and my story will be different, but God was always there. He was always, and I was the one turning away. It wasn't the other way around. And finally, by the grace of God and just by his forgiveness, and he let me in. And so just go for it. The Bible is so important, reading your Bible, and it can be a scary thing. Just the understanding it, just the size of it, that was so intimidating to me. But the best advice I got was just learn who Jesus was. Go to John. Read the Gospels and read it, and don't worry about trying to figure out everything. Just figure out who Jesus was and what he did. And when you start to read the Gospels, and Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and you peel away all the maybe difficult terminology and the verbiage, but you just understand what Jesus was doing and who he was, and then do the fact check. Go for it. Don't be afraid to go. You should. That's part of it. You have questions, and those are relevant questions, but go do your own homework, and don't listen to everybody, the outside noise, and then just see what God does. Let him in and see what he does. And I did that, and I would never change it for the world. It's completely changed my life.
Brad, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing your journey, your spiritual journey. We appreciate that very much.
All right. Well, I appreciate you guys having me on here.